Well done, well done. Can you tell me, before we start looking at the music, a little bit of the history of this piece? When did you learn it first, and have you performed it in public? Have you performed it at a concert, an exam?
Yeah, I started learning it in like this past year in November.
Okay.
And kind of left it around April.
Yes, put it away for a while.
Yeah, recently.
Yeah.
Brought it back.
Right,
Yeah.
okay. So, and the reason I ask is because I hear really great musical decisions and intentions in this, but the realization of them is perhaps not as clear as what I hear behind it. I hear in some cases, in certainly the second movement, a little bit of the arm getting a little tired, you know, and I'm sure you feel that as well. It's a tricky one with this particular movement. But also sometimes the connection to the sound seems to not be as reliable as you might like, you know, and this can often happen when we bring back a piece, yes? So let me ask you this. When you bring back a piece, how do you do it? What is your strategy?
Well, it depends on how long it's been since I've done it, but in this particular case, well, first of all, just attempting to perform it after not playing it and perform it for myself.
Yes,
not
of course.
in a public setting.
Sure,
and seeing kind of where the weaknesses are, and then just starting from there.
Okay.
And spot checking.
And I suppose the reason I'm asking that question is I'm trying to find out, do you go back and do hands separately work? Or do you take it from the hands together and try to kind of polish that?
I think a little bit of both. Just seeing where the weakest parts are, and then
you determine from
yeah.
that. Okay, good. Because I think sometimes what happens to us when we put away a piece for a while and then we try to take it out, we expect in some regard, you know, even though we know we've put it away for a while, we expect it to be at least within a decent level of a geographical kind of, you know, region of where we left it to some degree. But quite often, particularly with a piece that we've learned and then put away only once, it actually is incredibly beneficial to go back and pretend that you're actually relearning it, you know, from the first time as if you never had it before. And you'll find obviously that the speed at which you go through the stages is much faster, but what you're doing is you're reconnecting to that initial kind of organic identity of the line and of your decisions which now might be slightly different than the very first time that you did them. And I think certainly in some cases this would be helpful for you at this point within the piece, because I think it'll underline and support better perhaps some of the things that you're trying to do. I never learn a piece the way it's written on the page. I often tell the story, I used to have a recurring nightmare that I was walking out on stage to play a concerto and I knew the first two movements, but I did not know the third movement. And the hall was full and everyone was cheering and clapping and I'm having a heart attack, you know, in front of the conductor trying to pretend that nothing is going on. And there could be many psychological reasons as to why I was having that recurring nightmare, but I decided that from then on I was always going to learn the coda of the third movement of my pieces first. And the instant I started doing that, the nightmare never came back. There was something about feeling that I already knew the end that changed the way I related to the learning process of pieces. Now that's a very silly example, it's a very small example, but it did make me ask myself, if I'm doing that for, let's say, a sense of confidence, being able to, by the time you get to a coda in a sonata or a concerto, you're tired. So the last thing you want is the coda, which is usually more virtuosic than anything else, to be the thing that's stretching you the most. So if it's the first thing you learn, then it's the thing you've known the longest, and you can kind of sit back and enjoy it, as opposed to, you know, be really sort of reaching when you're already tired. So there was a kind of a good learning sort of outcome in that, besides just the no nightmares, you know. So in this, for example, our first movement here has many, many different styles in it. So I would be inclined to practice the styles that are similar, the sections and parts that are similar, right beside each other, to see exactly how identical and then what the tiny variations are in them, you know, rather than actually sort of go through the contrasting styles the way they're presented in the actual music. So anything that kind of gives us a different way of improving and kind of connecting the music, you know. So let's just try a couple of things. In the opening here, can you play through this for me? And one thing I'd like to ask you to do is, you're very musical and you tend to do a lot of conducting with your shoulders, which if we pull our shoulders up in any way, then what happens, if you put your hand just normally on the piano as if you're ready to play with relaxed shoulders, you've quite a good connection of the hand to the keyboard. Pull up your shoulders for me, and you see what happens to your hand. Yeah. Instantly, that connection is tilted. So now we're in a situation of having to actually reach down, which can create all sorts of interesting hazards, you know? So let's try and see if you can play just through the opening. It's very simple. It's just a bunch of chords in kind of a strange arpeggiated fashion. Very good. So your shoulders stayed kind of where they needed to stay, right? Now there is a crescendo that you're doing in that second phrase, yes? And something happens to the tone where I can tell that you're bearing down. Yes, exactly. And people often, and you didn't do this, but people often hold their breath as well, which you can hear in the sort of strangulated tone quality of the sound. So I'd like you to imagine, you know the way dancers will have the positions and everything is open, yes? Just allow yourself to be completely open, and the sound is just spinning out of you. You actually don't have to do anything much in terms of effort, and we'll get that simplicity that we're looking for. So you can use your breath also to be helpful at certain points. Okay, so now that's the beginning of this, which is great. How would you say these chords are grouped? Are they one on their own?
No.
Ti-dum, ti-dum. Yes. So there are relationships between these chords. Imagine as you're playing that you can hear that same chordal slur, 2-chord slur that you just played, and let's see how it changes the feel. Very good. So now I'm starting to hear a little bit of that harmonic structure and direction, which is very, very good. Now, in all of this, I want to talk about where we feel the pulse. At the moment, I'm feeling jata, 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 and that's probably not what you want me to be listening to. Good. Right. So imagine it is actually at the beginning of each of those 2 groups of chords. And I realize that this one is actually written as an upbeat, but ignore that just for the moment, yes? So shoulders down, just let the piano sing. Very, very good, very good. Now there is something that you do and you get to the end of the phrase. I think because you're anticipating switching registers, you start lifting out of the notes of the last 2 chords, and as a result you miss notes. Yeah. And you probably do this regularly, yes? Yeah. Yes, exactly. So if you hear something like that, there's always a physical reason, yeah? Don't shift until you finish playing the last 2, right? Just try that for me. There you go. Very good, very good. So already now I'm feeling a bit more confident because I have the bed of the harmony now. You know, it's not disappearing. Okay, I would play this just a little bit faster than you were doing. Yeah. Yes, you know, so since the pulse just moves. Bravo. Okay, very good. The last layer I would think about here is how swift is your pedal change, so that you don't have a dry moment in one arpeggio and then everything that is quite liquid in the rest. Yes. So see if you can really connect that fast pedal change. Very good. That's excellent. Okay, so you can see in putting it through a few different Yeah, exactly. A few different rinses in a sense, with different perspectives all the time. One of the things that I think we do, I certainly notice this in my teaching, I'm sure we all notice this in our practicing, that when we are trying to achieve a good outcome, usually that good outcome is probably about 4 or 5 different musical objectives knit into one outcome. Yeah. And the biggest problem I see with students and in my own practicing as well is the impatience to want to get to the outcome, but not wanting to take each objective as a separate thing, allow the brain and the body to connect over this, and then basically knit them all together, you know. But if you actually have the patience to do that, then you'll be able to have something that sounds effortless, but is really sophisticated, you know. So, okay, wonderful. Now, let's hear this. I would feel that your intention has to go all the way to here. Yeah. And it's a subito piano, yes? Yes. Okay, good. And when you get there, yes, quiet, but still cantabile, yes? Yes. Good. Now simple. Not too much too soon. Now go. And drop your arms. That's it. Okay, good. Very good, very good. So there's this sort of chiaroscuro effect going on here, yes? So you really have the sense of light, dark, of sort of malicious intent and then purity, you know? And this is, you know, if you were to describe this style, this kind of a piece style is actually fantasia. Yeah? Yeah. So you have to let your imagination run wild with a fantasia in a way that in other cases it's a little bit more consistent, right. Yes? Yeah? So don't be afraid of this. He's very, very clear with his directions and the changes in this. Now, I would like to talk a little bit about how you create a large sound. Because sometimes I see, and if you'll excuse me, I'll borrow your shoulder, shove. And there are more options than just shove as an option, right? Now I understand because a subito forte, that's the instinct, yes? So can you stand up for a second? Those of you, I think I've only done this with one person yet, but come over here. This has to be done away from the piano. And show me your hands, like this. We'll put our hands together, very good. So we play the piano with our fingertips. Can you show me your fingertips? Very good. And then from the wrist, yes? Very good. That particular motion is like this. Yes? All you're doing is you're using from the wrist, yes, for that. Exactly. Now, then you also use arms, yes? So you can feel me moving from the shoulders all the way through. So there's a very free motion of the arms. You can also have a bit more tension in it, like this. So show me the tension. Yes, that's a bit different. We don't always need it. Usually we're trying to get rid of it. And now don't let me fall. We also use our body weight. Yes, okay, so show me our body weight. Very good, very good. Now usually there's arms and body weight in connection with each other. There are 3 different types. Who remembers the first type? Who did I do this with? Yes? Yes, that's very true. And what was the one that both are together? Do you remember? The body and the arms together. That one's called the zombie, yes, right? So the zombie is that, right? So do you mean the zombie? So arms and body weight together. Very good, very good. Okay, then sometimes body weight comes first and the arms come after. Yes, well done. So body weight first. We're not really insured for this, but anyway. So body weight first, then arms. Good. You're going to use that for a big Beethovenian warm sound, right? Okay. Whereas if I go arms first like this, that is going to have a bit more of an edge to the sound. That's going to be a little bit more Prokofiev. That kind of feel, yes? But I'm going to show you arms first and then body weight later if you want it. So show me arms first.
Yeah.
Good, good. Part of this is actually being aware of what's happening in the body. So arms first, then body. Very good. Okay, so when you sit down to play, let's see, this moment, let's play it the wrong way first, yes? Let's play it with a bit of a shove and let's listen to what the sound comes out as. Okay, now, this piano is pretty resonant, right? So you could kind of get away with that a little bit. Yeah. But sometimes when we do a really fast force, particularly into the high register of the piano, the sound actually dies faster than it sings, you know? So what we want is a really powerful singing sound that has got power in it, but the sound really lasts, a round sound. So can you imagine that the body weight is coming from here and you're going to lean in, and as if you were pushing a car in the snow. Where do you come from in the States?
I'm from Canada.
Oh, sorry. Major faux pas. I am so sorry.
Fine.
But that's even better because I bet it snows a lot where you come from. Yes?
Yeah.
Good. Phew, recovered. So have you ever had to push a car in the snow?
Yeah.
No?
Not myself,
But you've seen people do
yeah.
this. People rarely get out to push a car in the snow and do this because you're not going to go anywhere. You get your back behind it and you push into the sound. So that's what I want you to do here. Yes? Because you want your sound to go somewhere. Good. Okay. Yeah, do it again. Do it again. A few times. Okay. So that came from the arms only. Did you hear that? Yeah. Okay. Now back. Yes. Yeah. Good. Okay. So let's try both ways. Just do the arm and let's listen to the quality of the tone. Good. That has an edge on it, doesn't it? And that could be very exciting at this moment, you know? Okay. Now put your back behind it and follow through the arms and really lean into the keyboard. The keyboard is not, it will support you. Okay, now go into the key a little faster. Okay, and then give me a little bit of the edge back in the tone. Yeah, so then that's with the back. Do the arms and the edge, the fast without the back. It has a bit more staccato in the tone, you know? So the other side of this too is you could look for a different type of approach with the low octave and the upper note. So try for me a bit more of the edge on the upper note, but a deeper back into the low octave.
Edge, like in the this
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So you can kind of play around with this a little bit in terms of the different colours of the forte that you want, you know. Very good. When you emerge from this, sometimes the top two chords feel a little separate, but they're really the resolution of this massive that we've just had, yes? So can we go from here and let's hear the whole thing. Yes. Is it possible to do it without the pause?
Okay, yeah.
Yes? Yes, because that's actually three chords. Now, I would stay forte here, yes? The dim, you're actually starting here, yeah? Okay? I'm gonna hear a big low second D flat. Good, very good. Yeah. So then the motion is not confined by the bar lines. Yes, it's actually dictated by the change in the texture. Very, very beautiful. I would actually crescendo.
Okay.
One last time. Okay, good. Now do that again for me. And when you change the pedal, don't lift it too soon. That's what happened. You got a hiccup there. So don't lift the pedal until after you have the D flat. Yeah. Brava. Okay, yeah, exactly. So already this is better. Now, once you have something like that, once you have your kind of blocks of sound planned, then you can sculpt, yes? And then it comes down to what I was just speaking about, that sometimes in an arpeggiated idea, you want to lift and float the weight to create a little wave in it, yes? But I would start in your case with just trying to connect with that sound, yes? Okay, very good. In something like this, I need more of the shape in your wrists, yes? So now I know the sound is light, but that does not mean your shoulders are going to fly, yes? Okay, go for it. Just do the right hand on the top for me if you can. Yes, but now you're doing very fingery. Can we do feel this, the appoggiatura on top. Yes, your wrist circles. So now let me feel that wrist for a second. So if we do it slowly. Yeah, and the reason behind that, we want that note to sing. And if you actually do that with your wrist, you drop, you will hear a different quality of sound than just the finger. Yes, exactly. Now can you do it with both hands? Yeah, and you know the interesting is, the question is, does it come from the top note? No, it comes from that. All the way down. That's the spirit, get rid of this note. Don't stop. Different. Long line. That bubble. Go back. And then again, not with the shoulders. Breathe. All the way. All the way, keep going. You haven't stopped yet. All the way. Keep going. This hasn't stopped. There's no end yet. There's no end. Keep going. Here you go. Yes. Okay. You have to. There's so many moments when we can lose that energy and momentum I was talking about. And it is our responsibility to carry it, and don't let anybody take a breath until they arrive at that incredible moment of that major chord. Yes, with the return, yeah? Because if we let it drop, and it has to do with the momentum of a note. I spoke earlier about a note having 3 parts, an entrance, a duration, and an exit. But in rhythmic terms, there are also 3 parts to a note. There's the exact pocket. You'll hear, jazz musicians talking about playing exactly in the pocket. Then you'll also hear about people playing on the front edge of the note. So you're not really acceleranding, but you're actually going, instead of bomb, 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 tom, 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 you're a split second ahead. And then you also hear people playing on the back of the note. And that's that sort of a lazy drag to it, but it's not slower. So what you need in all of this as you move through these phrases, and as you think you're going to end but you don't end, is that sense of being on the front edge, and there's no way, and then finally the resolution happens, yeah? So as we do this, there's a very bizarre marking in this, which is always so hard. It's this chord sforzando piano. And the only person I had ever really sort of seen do a brilliant sforzando piano or forte piano was a guy called Leonard Hokinson, who used to teach. He was a stunning collaborative pianist. He accompanied a ton of Lieder. He was really, really well known for this. And he had an ability to sort of mix his pedaling and shake his arm on the keyboard that literally allowed there to be a chick, and it would have a little bit of an edge to the note, and then the hammer would fall back to half position and there'd still be sound. So it was like he was able to create an echo effect within one sound. He's the only person I've ever really heard do it brilliantly. It was so fantastic. But in the meantime, before you achieve the heights of Leonard Hokinson, I would suggest that you listen to these chords again as 2-note slurs, like the opening, and imagine the sforzandos always as powerful but sung sounds, not accented sounds. Okay. We see sforzando and we think accent, but actually sforzando is an emphasis of sorts, right? If you were to imagine all the different emphases we can put on a note, the first is the length of the note. An agogic accent is an accent of length, right? But there's no actual marking on it, it's just the rhythmic value. The next possibly would be a tenuto. After that, maybe a normal accent. Maybe after that, a marcato. Maybe after that, you might start seeing your sforzando pianos coming in. Then you might see your rinforzando, and then they keep adding letters, right? So think about your accenting in terms of the articulation effect in kind of an ascending order, sort of similar to your dynamic control, Yeah. So, but this is really a sense of arm release, yes? So can we try to get into that from somewhere maybe here? And now here you go, and on there, yes. So if we think about it, it's groups of 4, but this last one is actually a group of 5 because we're going to the sforzando piano beyond it, yes? So try this again for me, so we actually hear real diminuendo down to that, yes? No, it's keeping tempo. And go to there, and go to there, and now and there, here. Yes, ti-dum, ti-dum. Yes. Good. Now I know I just pushed you, but yes, exactly. So the sforzando piano, it creates a rhythmic tension because of course it always happens on the weak part of the beat. So you're sort of fighting with the meter to a certain extent here. And we really are pushing against it. It's like ta-dum, ti-dum. It should have that sense of yearning in the sound, yes? Right. So don't be afraid to really lean in, yes? Okay, very, very good. Now, if I don't jump, I'm going to get caught in the rest of this piece. So can you just try a little bit of the second movement? And in this is totally what kind of style?
Like a, I don't know, agitated.
Agitated, yes. Yeah. Hopefully you're not agitated,
no.
but everybody else should be, exactly. It's a little toccata-esque, isn't it? Yes, yeah. Okay. So let's hear really good connection low in the key. Try if you can not to be holding your hands up and away, but that the connection with the key is sort of low to the ground and speedy, yes? Okay? Good. Okay, that was very good. It was very impressive. I would suggest that in this we have da 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 ding da 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 da. You don't want all four of those to be exactly the same emphasis. Show me a shape. Where are we really going in that first phrase?
Are you asking me?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. So are you going to that or are you going to this?
The E.
Okay, good. So then when you do that, don't get stuck on the G as if it's the high point and therefore accent. That's it, yes. And really you're going to the rest afterwards, right? So lift off, yeah?
Okay.
Okay, go for it. That's good. Now the thing is, you have far more time than you think you do.
Yes.
It sounds very exciting. You have a good sound, good articulation. Breathe, it's okay. Yeah? Good. So now, I loved your first phrase. I knew exactly where you're going. The second phrase, it sounds like you're going to this chord. Is that correct?
No.
Where are you going?
The E again?
Yes, exactly. So lift over that. Don't allow yourself to have an accent there. And one thing I would say is it is fortissimo, so use your left hand, yes? Good, yeah, very, very good. Now, your left hand backed off that note underneath your poor solitary E. It's trying to be carrying all the responsibility, yes? That's it. And go. Yes, now this. Keep your left hand is a little staccatissimo for me in this. Now I know you're probably trying to be very definite with the but it needs to be a bit more, a bit subversive. It's too active. A clean pedal. Brava. So we have a few syncopations. That's not really a syncopation, but we need to feel the hold, and then hold, hold here. So again, think of the duration of that note. It's not just da-da-da, I'm done. Da-da-da, da-da-da, yes. That's it. Very good. This is a moment of real kind of polyphonic layered texture, isn't it? And so we've gone from a melodic melody and accompaniment approach to suddenly having something very interesting and complicated, and then this sort of cross rhythm or cross direction between the basically the tenor and the alto. When we repeat for the second time, I think you could really investigate a little bit more of a color for the alto, you know, because we've heard the tenor already. We don't need to hear that again. Yes. So try from there for me. Let me hear the tenor, and that was really great. But then when the alto starts coming in, let's hear. Yeah, bring our attention there. That's okay. Good. Yes. So now it's interesting because at the end of those phrases, suddenly the complexity disappears because the inside notes start having those dotted crotchets, right? So you can allow the sense of the texture to be a little bit more transparent, yes? And then I think that will also help the that's happening, yes? And when you shift positions, try to shift with your arm first rather than trying to jump there with your hand. It will give you more time. I know you've heard that before. Yes, yes, exactly. One last thing, play it for me from the beginning. I want to have a sense of the hyper measure here. So, in a sense, our pulse isn't always every beat. This is in 6/8. Our pulse is definitely not 1, 2, 1, 2 in every bar. A lot of people will feel the pulse here. For me, this is a bit too many pulses actually because I don't get the sense of the connection. Imagine the pulses every 2 bars, just as an experiment, and let's see what we're going to feel, right? Yeah, I don't care about the notes. I just feel the pulse. Good, okay. Now play it for me with the pulse every single bar, right? And let's feel the difference. Okay, feels like a different piece. So that sense of is going to come from a longer pulse. So that hyper measure being 2 bars long. Try it one more time. Good, okay, now just for crack, as we would say in Ireland, feel the hyper measure as 4 bars long. Okay, so here we go. Okay, yeah. So you can, especially in a piece that has a lot of repetition, start to investigate where you're going to feel that sense of pulse carrying. And quite often, composers every now and again will change where the pulse really is, you know, even though the meter stays the same. But the way the music is written will indicate it's 2 bars here, it's actually 1 bar there, it's really 4 bars here. And if you're doing that kind of internal analysis of the pulse, it can be extremely exciting. And it adds something extra to the whole thing, okay? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Absolutely. Okay. Yes.